Let's take you overseas now, and Republicans are narrowly ahead with counting continuing in the US state of Georgia, with two key races to decide if Democrats take control of the US Senate. So here are the results so far. Republican incumbent David Perdue has taken the lead from Democrat challenger Jon Ossoff. With over 90% of the vote counted, Perdue is ahead 51.4% to Ossoff's 48.7%. In the second race, Republican Kelly Leoffler has a narrow lead over Democrat Raphael Warnock. The Republicans are 51.1% to the Democrats' 48.9%. But Republicans are nervous those leads could evaporate, with the overwhelming majority of remaining votes still to count in the Atlanta metro area, which generally favour the Democrats. For more on this, I'm joined live from Atlanta is CNN reporter Nadia Romero. Lovely to see you again, Nadia. As we just heard, those figures are very, very close. What is the latest?
Yeah, they're very close, and that's what we were expecting, right? Because this was always going to be a tight race, a narrow margin. Remember, President Donald Trump lost Georgia by less than 12,000 points. That's how much Joe Biden won this state. So this race is really anyone's to win whenever you're looking at either one of these Senate races. So you mentioned the results that we have in so far, but that's obviously not the totality. We're still waiting for some of these big counties like DeKalb County, which is heavily Democratic. They still have the largest number of outstanding votes. That coming from an update we just received from the Secretary of State here in Georgia. We're also waiting for some 17,000 military votes, those ballots that haven't been received. They need to be postmarked by today, Election Day, but they can still be counted as long as they're received by Friday. And so when you're talking about a race that has these razor-thin margins, every vote really does count. And we could be at a point where we may have to see a recount. If there's a 0.5% or less margin between candidates, either one of those candidates can call for a recount. That could likely happen here in Georgia, just like what we just went through for the November presidential election. So all of the election officials are saying just take a deep breath, take a step back. When you're looking at these numbers coming in, know that they could likely change, because we also had record voter turnout during early voting, and early voters also lean more Democratic as well. Julie?
A recount, just what everyone was hoping for. Nadia, we're also expecting to hear from the Republican senators shortly. What should we be expecting to hear from them?
Well, we're likely going to see a show of force and cautious optimism. We saw a statement that was sent out jointly by Senators David Perdue and Kelly Leoffler, who talked about how they were optimistic by seeing this high voter turnout. And that's really the key to victory for Republicans. They believed that if they could convince Republicans to vote on Election Day, that they would be able to make up some of those numbers with the Democrats who voted early. The question is, though, will that actually happen? And it may come down to President Donald Trump. Now, he's been tweeting and giving these interviews and posting videos that Georgia's elections have been rigged and you can't trust anyone here in the state to run a clean and fair election. Of course, there has been no evidence of widespread voter fraud. There's been dozens of lawsuits thrown out in Georgia and in other states as well, but the president's still making those claims. And so the fear from Republicans was that their constituents, Republican voters, just wouldn't show up and vote because they would believe that their vote didn't count. And that's why it was so important for the president to come back to Georgia just yesterday and rally the vote here. Did it work? That's the question. But we will likely see a show of force, cautious optimism from those two Senate Republicans when they speak later tonight.
Obviously, the numbers are neck and neck. We may not have a result for some time, as we know. Can we expect this to and fro for the coming days? Can we see it be like this, going back and forth, I suppose?
Yeah, and this is something that I know that people here in Georgia, they want to get it right. They have been under such scrutiny, the Board of Elections, the poll workers, everyone involved with the presidential election here in Georgia was under such scrutiny that they're going to want to make sure they get it right the first time. So there won't be a rush to judgment, a rush to say this person won. You won't see any of the media outlets projecting a winner in haste, because we know that this will come down to the last vote for both of these races. races. So we'll likely see this play out over the next couple of days, and rightfully so, because those military ballots can still arrive on Friday and be counted. So this could drag on through the weekend. And we could have that razor-thin margin where someone only wins by maybe a couple hundred votes. That likely will happen with both of these races. Julie?
Former White House advisor Barbara Heinbach touched on this in the last hour. Black voters helped flip Georgia for Joe Biden in the presidential election, and the Democrats are hoping for a repeat. What role is race playing in these elections?
Well, I mean, this entire runoff system is an inherently racist system. Why does Georgia do these runoff elections? In most states, the person who wins the most votes wins, right? There's this 50% threshold. That doesn't matter for other states, but in Georgia, it does. And that's because during the 1960s, during the civil rights movement, when black people were trying to get equal rights to white people, white lawmakers in Georgia said, hold on a second. If black people realize their voting power and they're not disenfranchised at the voting booth, they can actually vote, we might have a black governor. We can't let that happen. And so this isn't like a racist dog whistle. This isn't some political theory. This is on the books. This is in the advertisements. In 1964, when Georgia adopted the runoff election system, the entire purpose was to limit the power of black voters. And it's worked. It's worked for all of these years. Georgia has never had a black governor, a black lieutenant governor, a black secretary of state, ever, even though black people make up 1/3 of the population in Georgia. This is by design. This is what you call institutionalized racism. This is not just something that happens in Georgia. This is on the books. 1964. Look it up. This is a fact. And so if Reverend Warnock was able to win this election, he would be the first black senator. Black people here in Georgia, they know this. This is why voter turnout for the black community was sky high in the presidential election. This is why you have Stacey Abrams, the former gubernatorial candidate who almost won a few years back. This is why you see people making these grassroots efforts to knock on black people's doors and to encourage them to vote and to fight back against voter disenfranchisement that has been plaguing the black community since the end of slavery. So if Reverend Warnock was able to be the first black senator in Georgia, it would mean so much to black people, not just in Georgia, but all throughout the Bible Belt, where we see a lot of these racist policies that have prevented black people from having positions of power, because it's all by design, racist design. And the runoff system in Georgia was founded by racist principles, and it's still here today. Julie?
We could see history in the coming days. Only time will tell. Nadia Romero, thank you so very much for your time. We appreciate it.